Picture this. You step outside on a calm morning, coffee steaming in your hand, only to spot a cluster of people planted right in your driveway as though it belonged to them. That was my reality, and right in the middle of it all was Karen, a neighbor with the kind of entitlement you usually only read about in online nightmare threads. But this wasn't some exaggerated internet tale. This was my day-to-day life. What started out as a mild irritation soon spiraled into something so toxic that police officers eventually hauled her son off in handcuffs. The whole ordeal began just a few months after I settled into my new house. I was proud of that place. It was a peaceful neighborhood, tucked neatly into a suburban street where everyone, at first glance, seemed kind and welcoming. The driveway was wide, spotless, and completely mine, something I'd dreamed of after years of being stuck in apartment complexes with overcrowded parking lots. But apparently, Karen and her family saw it differently. The very first time I found them in my driveway, I brushed it off as a simple accident. Her teenage son had parked his car right across the entrance, trapping mine inside. I walked up to her door and knocked, keeping my tone friendly as I asked if he could move it. Karen answered with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, her words soaked in condescension. "Oh, we didn't think it would matter. Our driveway's a little tight and yours is so big," she said, as though that gave her the right to take over my property. I let it go, not wanting to ignite bad blood with a neighbor so soon after moving in. But within weeks, it became a routine. Nearly every morning, I'd find either Karen's bulky SUV or her son's car jammed halfway across my driveway. Sometimes, they'd even dump bicycles carelessly on the concrete like it was their own storage unit. When I tried bringing it up again, Karen dropped the fake politeness. "Listen," she snapped. "We've been here for years. You're new. We've always used that space when we need it. It's not a big deal. Don't turn it into one." That's when it hit me. This wasn't some misunderstanding. She truly thought my driveway was hers to use whenever she pleased. And things only got worse from there. Her son started shooting daggers at me with his eyes every time I stepped outside. Karen's husband had this habit of muttering under his breath whenever I walked past, usually something about me being difficult. The hostility was simmering, and I felt it every single time I stepped outside. For a while, I second-guessed myself. Was I blowing this out of proportion? Maybe this neighborhood just had its own unspoken rules and I needed to adjust. But deep down, I knew the truth. This wasn't a misunderstanding, this was harassment. My boundaries weren't just being crossed, they were being stomped on, and I hadn't even witnessed the worst of it yet. The day things crossed the line began like any ordinary morning. I was getting ready for work when I spotted muddy tire tracks across my driveway, stopping just short of my garage. At first, I figured a delivery truck had made a mistake. But then I saw Karen's son at the edge of the driveway with a group of his friends, laughing like it was the funniest prank they'd ever pulled. When I confronted him, he leaned against his car with a smirk. "Relax, man. It's just a driveway. What's the big deal?" The big deal was obvious. He was deliberately disrespecting me and my property. I told him to move his car and stop tearing up my driveway. He muttered under his breath, rolled his eyes, and moved the car, but not before flipping me off in front of his buddies. Later that evening, I came home to find Karen waiting outside, arms folded and her tone sharp. She accused me of harassing her son. "Kids will be kids," she scolded. "You need to stop intimidating him. He's just a teenager." I couldn't believe it. Somehow me asking her son not to damage my property had turned into me being the villain. From that moment on, it felt like the whole family had declared war on me. Small things at first. Trash showing up on my lawn, their dog doing its business near my front steps, and Karen shooting daggers at me every time I drove past. But then it ramped up. One night I heard banging outside. When I went to check, her son and his friends were skateboarding across my driveway, deliberately making as much racket as possible. As soon as I appeared, they scattered, laughing as they disappeared down the street. The next morning, I discovered fresh scratches etched down the side of my car door. Long, deliberate, unmistakable. My stomach sank. I had no hard proof, but I knew who had done it. That was my breaking point. I installed security cameras around my property, covering the driveway and yard. If they wanted to keep pushing, this time I'd have evidence. Sure enough, Karen spotted the cameras within days and went ballistic. She stormed up to my door screaming about me spying on her family. But I caught something else in her face. Fear. She knew the game had changed. The cameras didn't lie. Within a week, they captured everything I suspected and more. Karen's son wasn't just parking on my driveway anymore. He'd turned it into his hangout spot. He and his buddies blasted music, lounged on his car, and tossed fast food wrappers all over my lawn like it was their personal dump. They thought they were untouchable. But one night, the footage caught something that made my blood boil. Around midnight, her son spray-painted crude graffiti on my garage door before sprinting off. That was the final straw. The next morning, I marched to Karen's house with a USB stick. When she opened the door, I told her calmly, "You need to see what your son did last night." She didn't even glance at the footage. Instead, she sneered. "Don't you dare accuse my child. He's a good kid. You're obsessed with us." My temper flared, but I kept control. "If you won't watch it," I told her, "the police will." For the first time, her confidence cracked. Her face turned red, her voice shook, and she barked, "You wouldn't dare!" before slamming the door. That same night, my cameras picked up her husband creeping across my yard with a flashlight, circling my car like he was inspecting it. He didn't touch anything, but the message was clear. They wanted to intimidate me. I wasn't backing down. I called the police. 2 officers came, reviewed the footage, and agreed I had grounds for a complaint. They warned me it might escalate tensions. But I told them the tension was already unbearable. Word spread quickly. Not long after, Karen's son stormed over, red-faced and yelling. He accused me of ruining his life because his friends thought he was a loser now that I had involved the cops. His tantrum drew a small crowd of neighbors. I didn't argue. I just pointed to the camera above my garage. His face went pale as the reality sank in. Every word, every threat was being recorded. That was the turning point. My neighbors no longer saw me as the problem. They finally saw the truth. The breaking point came one morning when I caught him pacing in my driveway, phone in hand, muttering angrily. When he spotted me, he shouted, "You're going to regret this, old man!" loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. A crowd gathered as he slammed his fist onto the hood of my car, leaving a visible dent. That was it. I called the police immediately. This time, when officers arrived, I showed them the footage, his threats, the vandalism, everything. They didn't hesitate. They went straight to him, asked a few questions, and within minutes, he was in handcuffs. Karen came running out, screaming hysterically. "You can't do this! He's just a boy. He didn't mean it!" She clawed at the officers, but they brushed her aside gently. Her son cursed me as they shoved him into the patrol car. The look on Karen's face when the door slammed shut behind him was unforgettable. The smug entitlement was gone, replaced with pure panic. She turned to me, her voice cracking. "This is your fault! You destroyed my family!" I stood firm. "No, Karen. Your family did this to themselves." The neighbors, who had been watching silently, finally understood what I had endured. The cameras had revealed everything, and the law had finally stepped in. The officers filed their report, and her son faced charges for vandalism, harassment, and property damage. Karen tried spinning the story, painting me as obsessed, but no one believed her anymore. The footage spoke louder than her lies. After that, the harassment stopped completely. Karen avoided me, her husband kept his head down, and her son disappeared from sight for months. My driveway, once a battleground, was finally mine again. One quiet evening, I stood there looking at the empty pavement, realizing something important. Standing your ground isn't just about defending property. It's about refusing to let bullies dictate your life. And if you enjoyed this wild HOA nightmare, make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment with the part that shocked you most. And don't forget to subscribe with the bell on, because you won't want to miss the next unbelievable story.